Okay, good. All right. Okay. So, welcome to the second session of um, Secrets of Symbolism. Can everyone see everything okay? Is nothing in the way or anything like that? I'm all good. I should be just in the bottom right corner. Is that right, Francis?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Bottom
Okay,
right.
good.
Yeah, that.
All right. So, a lot of research went into this. Probably over, I would say, spanning upwards of 5 months worth of research and intense research in the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, we'll see how we go. Um, it's a lot, but I try to make it as interesting as possible. So let's start with a quick case study. The staff of Moses. So the staff of Moses is described in the Bible as a walking stick carried by Moses. In the book of Exodus, this staff uh, played a significant role in several miracles. It turned into a serpent and back again, brought forth water from a rock, and was instrumental in the parting of the Red Sea. So it also people also say it's also called the rod of Aaron, and there's a lot of heavy serpent symbolism circulating it. Okay, so the question is, why does Moses have a magic snake staff? And this is obviously a very interpreted thing. People interpret it in ways such as, oh, it means Moses wielded the power of, evil in order to overcome. People come up with explanations, specific, especially in the biblical kind of interpretive lens. Um, so, needless to say, in the modern era, such things get interpreted from a place of harmless ignorance. The true meaning of things often can be unexpected. So, I want to quickly show you guys something. Now, there's no sound on this. Um, okay, so this is a snake charmer in Egypt, and the pharaoh had snake charmers, um, all around him. He had magicians around him and so on, and it was seen to be the power of what's it called? The power of the pharaoh. And what he's doing is a trick where they would paralyze a snake by pressing on its nerve at the back of its neck. And then they would coil it around a staff or cane, as you see him doing here. And the snake just won't move. It just is kind of paralyzed. And there's your symbol, or the serpent and the staff. So in the myth, what it is said is that Moses turned a serpent into a staff, and his staff into a serpent, and then back into a serpent again. And this is seen as kind of the power of God, but it's really a statement to show that God has all of the powers of the pharaohs and more, or whatever your God can do, my God can outdo. So that's what that kind of it's not the pure meaning of the whole Moses stuff, but it's something that would have made sense at the time that's kind of lost. And this is a really, unique tradition. You still get Indian snake charmers and Egyptian snake charmers and such, but it's kind of a lesser known interpretation or thing. Just going to open up my screen there. Okay. There we go. All right. And then so there you go. There's the snake around the cane. And with what we just saw, now we have context as to kind of what this might symbolize. Maybe it symbolizes the power of God. Maybe it symbolizes the triumph of the Hebrews over the Egyptians. But at least now our understanding of the symbol becomes a little bit more complex. So is that all to the symbol? Let's read a little further into the whole Moses Exodus story. So, and the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water. We loathe this worthless food. So, for those who don't know the Exodus story, Moses took all of the Jews who were slaves and everything in Egypt, and he, escaped with them into the desert. And in Numbers 21:4 Numbers 21:5, what we just read, you see doubt. This is doubt of the people. Um, and now 6, then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many people of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said to Moses, Make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and put it on a pole, and if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. So we have this weird inversion where the sight of the serpent on the pole or cross, as people like to call it, right? People attribute this a little bit to a kind of foreshadowing of what's to come, are saved or are healed. And so I just need to crack open this for you, sorry. Yep. Saved or healed. Now what does this mean? Why is we have a serpent which is literally killing people in one instance, and now it's a side of savior? Um, this contradictory essence of serpents is repeated everywhere and throughout all time. We're about to see it. So, another layer to this symbol of the serpent and the rod, we have Asclepius, the god of healing. Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine and healing, was worshipped in healing temples, Asclepiae, where people sought cures through rituals and dream incubation. His symbol, a staff with a single coiled serpent around it, represented healing, renewal, and divine power, and is still used as a symbol for medicine today. Some scholars suggest that the serpent symbol in Israel might have originated with the Phoenician god Eshmun, a healing deity later equated to Asclepius in Greek interpretation. So this is Asclepius, as you see here. He is the grandson of Zeus, son of Apollo, and the nephew of Hermes. And I'm sure people know Hermes' staff is the caduceus. It is the double-coiled rod that often gets mistaken as the rod of Asclepius. In the context of healing, the rod of Asclepius is normally the symbol. But then, due to confusion, people started to use the caduceus, which is Hermes' double-coiled serpent staff. And then over time, that just became the symbol for healing and health. And you see on some ambulances today, they have the wrong symbol. It was quite interesting. And this is the World Health Organization and various symbols in which uses the rod of Asclepius, right? So why serpents are associated with Asclepius and healing, we're going to get into. But just for a bit of context, the Asclepiae had snakes all around them, and they loved snakes. They were non-venomous snakes in particular, right? And they were, as I said, a symbol of healing. But it's just weird thing. Why is it a symbol of healing? What does a snake have to do with healing when they typically kill you, right? Okay, so Eshmun, the god I just referenced, some scholars suggest that the serpent symbol in Israel might have originated with the Phoenician god Eshmun, as I just said. The Neoplatonist Demisius also stated the Asclepius in Beirut is neither Greek nor Egyptian, but a native Phoenician divinity. So the belief is that the original Asclepius started in Phoenician region. And as you see in this coin, you have the caduceus, the double-coiled serpent, behind him, indicating that the double-coiled serpent was likely a first myth, and the single serpent around the rod might have come later. It might have been influenced by Moses, or vice versa. The Moses story might have been influenced by Asclepius, since back here we see the serpent is a symbol for healing. If you look at the serpent, you're healed. So the question is, what's the truth? what is the symbol? What does the symbol mean? Both symbols at the same time work together. Sorry, both meaning Asclepius and Moses. They both work together. The Greek influenced the Hebrew, and the Hebrew influenced the Greek. We often what's the term? Underestimate the degree to which cross-pollination of ideas happened in the ancient world. A lot of people don't know of, say, first century Alexandria was a hotbed of Greco-Hebrew ideas, meaning that like the Hebrew ideas of what happened in the Bible and all the biblical stories commingled with the Greek, and the Greek commingled with the Bible. And if you look at the Bible, you have Samson, who's the guy, the strong man who God made the strongest man of all time, is the same as Hercules. Zeus made Hercules the strongest man of all time. Samson and Hercules both hold up the world and so on, right? So you have this commingling of ideas. So what does this symbol that you're seeing in blue? The question is, what does it mean? Because if I were to show you before we started, you wouldn't have understood, what it had meant with the context of what I just said. So as you can see, a symbol will evolve the more you know about it. In other words, what's more important when we look at ancient texts, ancient sources, ancient symbols, isn't the symbol, it's the context of the symbol, because the context is what enriches it with what it actually meant. So, if the symbols weren't commingled at the genesis of when they were written, then surely they would have been by later scholars, which would specialize in Greco-Roman, Greco-Hebrew studies. So just to be clear, there's no evidence that the rod of Asclepius and the rod of Moses, like they're the same thing. There's no evidence for that, but there is a little bit of evidence they have a common root, and even though there's no direct evidence that they're the same thing, they inhabited the same place, and it's very likely that interpretations of what they meant would have overlapped. Um, this is what I just said. Just towards the end, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and a symbol is worth 1,000 images or pictures, I should have said. So Agatha's daimon. So snake worship was all but one-dimensional, often an amalgam of many gods. So Agatha's daimon was often represented in the form of a snake. A daimon or a daemon is not a bad thing. It sounds bad with our modern ears, like a demon. But a daemon was uh almost like a deity that was what's the idea? It's almost like a deity that's more of an idea than a god. Or it's almost like an angel of sorts is a way to think about it. There's a proper terminology for it, I've just forgotten. It's a bit late at night for me here. So yeah, so he was a kind of semi-deity that was worshipped by the people, and he was a deity of protection of houses and homes. And at every meal, you would, say grace to Daimon, Agathos Daimon. Agathos means good, and Daimon means like a tutelary deity, a good spirit in a way. But again, he's associated with the snake. What is this thing with snakes being good guardians, but also being these horrific killers, right? Um, Akelos Daimon, and I'll get into the text in just a moment, is really interesting because he is such a rich amalgam of I've read upwards of six gods: Zeus, Dionysus, Isis, and Osiris. He's just this mishmash of mishmashes of gods. And he really is a good case study into how commingled he is with other gods. I'll show you some images in a minute. Just to finish off this text, the daimon is also a function. This is the second sentence um, of one's being, a characteristic inherently neither good nor bad. Hence, one prays for a good daimon, a eudaimon. That's where the word eudaimonia comes from. Eudaimonia, almost like a euphemism or a utopia. EU means good. So a eudaimon would be a good spirit in a way. It's not really a spirit, it's kind of like a spirit. And goodness from the gods for the coming month, and also for the favor of Father Zeus as Agathos. Agathos daimon. Agathos daimon is also associated with Dionysus, especially with his gift of wine. A feast would often be closed with a small drink of unmixed wine, called either Agathos daimon or Zeus soter, meaning savior, as though supplicating the god that they may do nothing indecent or have too strong a desire for the drinking. So this symbol of temperance is quite interesting, and may receive from it all that is noble and salutary. And when they would say cheers to Agathos they would pour a little bit out for Daimon, for Agathos Daimon. Sorry, he's referred to as Agathos Daimon and Agathodaimon uh, at the same time. They're two different ways of referring to him. And I find it really funny that you pour a little bit of alcohol out for Agathos Diamond because that's like a street thing that's done that you pour like a little bit of alcohol out for your dead friends. It's a weird thing. I don't know. But yeah. So this is another depiction of Agathos Daimon, particularly with the association of Zeus or Zeus Soter or Seraphis. Seraphis is an amalgam of there's so many amalgams of gods. It's incredible. They loved to just mix them and say, this is the god of this and this. We'll have a little bit of Zeus over here and a little bit of Osiris here. Let's make a new god and call him Seraphis or something. But the ram horns are very telling as to, what god they're kind of evoking here. This is a younger, much later depiction of Agathos Daimon. He was almost always at the time represented as just a snake. Um, This is almost, as you can see, the snakes are commingled, just like the divine union, right? Um, and that head of like Zeus is really lion-like. And I think that this later gets built upon. But here he's supposed to be, sorry, he might be Zeus or Osiris. And then on the left, you have 100% Isis. With Isis, you always look for the little crown with the sun in the middle. That's always Isis, almost always Isis. But Isis and Osiris are the divine pair of ancient Egypt. Another depiction of him, and there's, as you can see, you've got the caduceus there, the two intermingled snakes, just like you had with Eshman. So you see already, we're just in the ancient times, we're just layering on like reference after reference. Greeks were incredible with their references. They were really, like in English, how we have these double entendres that we make, almost like when we name buildings, things, or companies. Like for example, Elon Musk had a company where he digs holes, right? And he called it the Boring Company, right? Because it's boring and digging holes is boring. Greeks did that all the time, which makes obviously being a scholar, like not that I'm a scholar now, but for scholars now, it's very difficult. What were they actually saying? And so when we have symbols like this, they're just layers of, references and references and references and references. And it's a funny thing to say. You just had to be there in order to understand it. We can only get a glimpse of what these things meant now. Another depiction, very famous depiction, Agathos Daimon. So this is the mystery, the contradictory nature of the symbol. The question is, why is the symbolism of the serpent so multifaceted, especially considering how diametrically opposed the symbolism presents itself as? Why, like in the Bible passage, are fiery serpents bringers of death and yet are a symbol of healing? So they represent fear, death, and chaos, which I haven't built out yet. We're about to get into it, but they do. But also healing, hope, and medication or medicine. They also represent wisdom, right? And us Theosophists would know this, right? And they also represent fertility, which in ancient times, those two things are almost kind of opposites, right? Almost like worshipping of fertility and like sexual intimacy is seen as in certain groups unpious or not wise, right? Uh, so yeah, serpent symbolism in today's world, this is really rich. In the medical field, the serpent is immortalized as the rod of Asclepius, as we saw, a single snake wrapped around a staff representing healing and medicine. A singular image, the caduceus with two snakes and wings, is associated with Hermes, symbolizing not only commerce, but also wisdom and the duality of life and everything else. Throughout mythology, serpents and dragons appear again and again as powerful symbols of chaos, transformation, and sometimes evil. The Mesopotamian god Marduk slew the chaos serpent Tiamat. We're just going to get into this in a minute. I won't double read things, but I included this image of Voldemort and of Smaug to show that The Hobbit and Harry Potter are two great pseudo-mythological, epics of the last 100 years. I was going to say I think Harry Potter will continue to be really big for years to come. And the villain or a villain is Serpentine. And you see this like all throughout history. Why are serpents the bringers of evil, the bringers of doom and death, right? But again, we have this contradictory idea that they're healers. It's commented on by philosophers with Nietzsche's eternal return. So that's really a niche reference. So the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche would always talk about nihilism or the battle against nihilism. He had a concept called eternal recurrence. Anyway, he used the symbol of the Ouroboros, and it's just a kind of reference from ancient times that's found in more modern philosophy. The dragon slaying motif became the seed of the modern what's it called? Of the modern idea of the dragon slaying and King George, and of course the Ouroboros with one of the symbols related. I don't know what I was trying to say there in the Theosophia logo. Um, so yes, so we've seen this symbolism about, but I think we don't know how rich it is. So why serpents? Um, why are serpents revered? Or why are serpents kind of so prevalent in myth? Like you read mythological tales and see the symbolism, and it's like you see the same animals typically. There's a bird of some sort, either an eagle or dove, or some other bird, a lion, bull, ram, goat, snake. There's always these animals. Why isn't it like, I don't know, quokka or something? Like what why there's so many animals out there. Why is it always snakes? Why is there so much around snakes? And the reason why they're so prevalent in the ancient world, um, and I will go so far as to say it, they are the most prevalent animal in the ancient world, maybe next to the bull. It's a tough competition. It might be part three is the bull. Is their deadly capacity. Snakes are called the primordial enemy of humans. So we have an evolutionary fear of snakes. Anthropologist Lynn Isabel argues that humans have an innate fear of snakes due to evolutionary pressures. Snakes were significant predators of early primates. This fear persists globally and explains the serpent's symbolic link to death in many mythologies. Jungian archetype of death and rebirth. According to Joseph L. Henderson and Maud Oakes, the serpent symbolizes not only death, but also initiation and rebirth. In Jungian terms, the snake acts as an archetype, an unconscious image signifying transformation through death. Okay, so that's the Jungian interpretation that it symbolizes rebirth. I get into that into a minute. Um, I find it very strange, though. I'll get into why I find it strange. It's all right. We'll just keep going. So Paleolithic myth reconstruction using phylogenetic and statistical methods. Julian Dewey reconstructed a prehistoric myth in which the snake is linked to storms and water, often guarding rivers or demanding sacrifices and so on. So I don't know if anyone has seen like the whole thing on the internet about putting a cucumber next to a cat and it jumps up. You've seen that, right? And it's because like in its brain, in our brain, of all the complex happenings that happen within it, nothing can override all of that quicker than fear. And fear is like the most like reptilian and ancient thing in the brain. And there's an argument that fear drove evolution or suffering drove evolution and fear came out due to suffering, right? And I love seeing like when the cat, or some animal just loses it when it sees something snake-like, because it speaks to how like prepared the brain is to perceive serpents. Ever been like walking in the woods and you just kind of like, oh, in the bush or something, and you see like a rod, you go, ugh, and it just humbles you for a minute. Terrible feeling, but it's like your life flashes before your eyes. Um, Talking about eyes is the reason why there's a baby eye here is because there's a recent study where they showed babies images of snakes and their pupils dilate, meaning that before a baby even knows what a snake can do, right? Before it knows what venom is or even death is, it is prepared to perceive a snake as a threat, which is incredible, right? It speaks to how deep it is in our brains. And this is the reason why I think when we create villains and books and movies and TV series, we pull from that deep archetypal source in our brain and we pull up these villainous serpentine like creatures. So the fear of the serpent is encoded within us and is likely a psychological basis. So just bottom line, how do we go from that to healing, hope, and wisdom though? And back when we saw this thing about the Jungian interpretation, here it is here. So according to Jung, the snake, this is the first paragraph, the snake is a typical archetype of transformation and healing. It represents the life force that can bring about renewal by shedding its skin, symbolizing rebirth and the process of psychological individuation. At the same time, it embodies the shadow, something dangerous, forbidden, feared, and also necessary for growth. But here's my question, is that if our brains are so prepared to interpret one thing from serpents and it's fear, how do we have a complex interpretive lens in our subconscious? Why do we have all of this deep, rich symbolism of serpents when we should be just scared of them? So Jung, it is paraphrased from Jung. The snake is ambivalent. It carries the double. This is the most. Sorry, am I frozen? There we go. This is almost the thesis of this talk. Is in this. The snake is ambivalent. It carries the double message of life and death. It symbolizes the process of transformation, where destruction and renewal are intertwined. The deadly venom reminds us of the shadow, danger, and fear, while the shedding of the skin speaks for regeneration and healing. Healing is possible only through confronting and integrating the darker, threatening aspects of the psyche. Um, I get into the exact kind of mythological root of this, and it's not very well known. So this is some really the kind of secrets of symbolism here a bit, because a lot of things I'll say later is found in ancient Greek mystery rites that we have texts that say when people revealed they were killed. So they were quite literally secrets. Okay, this reinforces the strange idea of the snake being the killer healer. So just I'm going to go through a few common interpretations of serpents. I should have done it here, but the three main ones, and there's a fourth lesser one. First is chaos, the chaos serpent. The second is healing, which we already covered a bit. The third is of a serpent, of serpents in symbolism. There's the fourth one of fertility as well. That's less important to today. Serpents frequently symbolize chaos and primordial disorder across many mythologies, representing dangerous, unpredictable forces that threaten cosmic and social order, often serving as adversaries defeated by gods or heroes to restore balance. This chaotic symbolism highlights the serpent's role as powerful and ambivalent force, capable of both destruction and renewal. So, in almost every great pantheon, there is the waters of chaos with some serpent association at the beginning of time. You have Tiamat and Apsu in Sumerian. You have Yom and Gandia in Norse myth. The most important one that speaks to what was just said is Nu or Nun in the or the Ap in Egyptian. So in some Egyptian mythologies, the world's going to be destroyed and then renewed again. So all comes from the waters, and the waters will just replenish and destroy everything just to be renewed again. And there you have the shedding of the skin of the serpent, right? Okay, so yeah, we'll go into it in a minute. We don't need to read that. So Tiamat is a notable one, primordial goddess in Babylonian mythology. often depicted as a great serpent or dragon embodying chaos and the untamed forces of nature. Uh, just going to speak off the cuff here. She was the waters at the beginning of time that was slayed by um, Marduk in the Babylonian myth. And there's strong associations or parallels there with Zeus and his brothers taking out Kronos, right? Uh, Titans of sorts, right? Because Tiamat is not just a god, she's beyond a god. She's a titan, for lack of better words. And Marduk, a god, associated with Zeus, strikes down the great demon, or Tiamat's called the mother of monsters. All foul creatures came from her. Very interesting that, this is at the beginning of time for some reason. Uh, so Ap or Apophis, Apophis, right? So in Hebrew, so you see Ap to mean serpent or primordial waters everywhere. Zoroastrian, Egyptian, Greek, it's just everywhere. So in Hebrew, the root Av can mean father, but in unrelated, but that's unrelated. However, the word Ap itself as water appears mostly in older Semitic languages. So you'll remember when I talked about Tiamat, her partner, the other water deity was Absu. So B and P was interchangeable. So it's Apsu or Absu. The AP root and the AB root are the same. It means father. So you have Apophis. I always mess it up. It's really confusing for me. In Indo-European languages like Sanskrit, Ap means water. So in Sanskrit, Ap means water. The root is found in river names and words for water across ancient languages showing shared linguistic heritage. The root ap or ab comes from ancient Semitic languages and typically means water or river. And if you look at a river, it looks like a massive serpent has gone through there. The Aboriginal Australians quite literally thought this. They thought the Swan River in Perth or the all of Australia, all the rivers in Perth were carved out by the rainbow serpent. Um, in Akkadian and Sumerian context, Ap means water or river. Oh, sorry, I just read that. Moving on. Api in Avestan is a water deity. Apep in Egyptian is the Egyptian equivalent of the Greek Apophis. Apophis. um, so yeah, so you have this Ap root. Just very shortly here, you have the serpent wrapping around the primordial deity at the beginning of time. On the left, you have Ahriman, who's almost like the devil in Zoroastrianism. He's the kind of first idea of a devil in the world, of this bad figure at the beginning of time. Here it's very funny for those who know Gnosticism. The kind of devil in Gnosticism is a serpent with a lion's head, and as you see, Ahriman here is depicted as a lion-headed man with a serpent going around him. And if you look at the bottom, you also see again the caduceus. Um, so yeah, and then on the right you have Phanes. Phanes is the first primordial deity at the beginning of time that created everything, or everything was created from him, and he's depicted with a serpent around him as well. Jormungandr, the most iconic serpent wrapping around the world. I explained in last symbolism talk about how the ancient mind thought waters encapsulated the world because rain came from the heavens. If you dig down, you get water, groundwater. If you go in any direction, anywhere on earth, you're going to reach a beach, which gives you the illusion that you're encapsulated in water, up, down, left, and right. And this was depicted as the serpent wrapping around the world, or the waters encapsulating the world, right? That's why the serpent swallows its own tail because it forms circle. Jormungandr, known as the Midgard serpent, is a giant sea serpent in Norse mythology, born of Loki and the giantess Angraboa, I think it's pronounced. Odin cast him into the ocean that surrounds Midgard, and he grew so massive that he eventually encircled the entire world, grasping his own tail. This image of the serpent biting its tail mirrors Ouroboros, symbolizing the cyclical nature of existence. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. Just moving on. Leviathan in the biblical context. Leviathan is a massive sea creature often associated with chaos, evil, and the underworld. Call this the biblical equivalent of Tiamat, because again, when these ideas were written, they used what was present at the time to create these stories. Leviathan is also depicted as a primordial force of destruction, something that only God can control or defeat, symbolizing the chaos before creation. Over time, the image of Leviathan became linked to Satan in Christian theology. The dragon-like creature began to symbolize Satan um, as a force of order. In medieval and later Christian interpretations, Leviathan is sometimes portrayed as a manifestation of the devil. Yeah, they call him straight up the devil later on in later Christian theology, and just identify the two. So quite interesting. Python. So this is going to be today the most significant kind of serpent antagonist. So in Greek myth, Python was the great serpent or dragon of Delphi, born of Gaia. It guarded the Amphilos stone and the sacred oracle. Apollo slew the python to claim Delphi, establishing his sanctuary in the Pythian Games. Python that thus symbolizes the chthonic power, prophecy, and struggle of divine authority. So probably the more recent or the oldest, don't want to say oldest, but it's the most clear analog or clear source of the dragon slayer motif or idea that we see a lot in modern times. This is the form that it takes. And this dragon slayer, Saint George slaying the dragon, it sits upon all of this, right? All the way back to time that it sits upon all of it. And then you ask someone, well, what does this slaying of the dragon mean? It means confronting your fears. It's like, yeah, sure. And everything else. So the story of St. George and the dragon evolved from earlier pagan myths, like those from Hercules and Perseus, where heroes slay serpents or monsters. As Christianity spread, these myths were adapted, with St. George becoming a Christian knight, symbolizing the triumph of good over evil, and the dragon representing Satan or sin. Then, after that dragon slayer idea came, then you have the real modern era. The dragon slaying hero myth continued evolving, influencing more modern tales like Smaug in The Hobbit. Smaug, much like earlier mythological dragons, embodies greed, destruction, and chaos. However, Tolkien's interpretation introduces a more nuanced, intelligent antagonist who guards treasure. So I'm sure most of us are familiar with this. Um, so, yeah, moving on. Okay, so this is another interpretation. So we've covered chaos. This is fertility, the one I didn't really draw attention to. So it's just very interesting. And this is teetering on heretical. So this is just an idea that is circulating in Christian and Jewish groups. In certain Abrahamic traditions, the serpent is seen as a symbol of sexual desire. Some interpretations of the Midrash further associate the serpent with sexual passion and temptation. In Hinduism, the concept of the Kundalini describes a dormant spiritual energy believed to lie coiled at the base of the spine, often envisioned as a serpent. So I'm sure most of us have heard the Kundalini before. Um, yeah, it has less, some people do associate it with a sexual idea, but yeah. Anyway, Jewish scholars, Christian scholars have associated the serpent with temptation, but in particular, sexual temptation, quite a lot. So this is called a serpent seed hypothesis. It's very out there, crazy, but it's been around for many years. So the doctrine of serpent seed, also known as dual seed or two seed line doctrine, is a controversial belief in some fringe Christian or other Abrahamic religious movements that interprets the biblical account of the fall of man as follows. The serpent mated with Eve. Very quickly, I'm just using Wikipedia as a very quick overview. This is very reliable. What's it called? Interpretation. Um, so the serpent mated with Eve in the Garden of Eden, and the offspring of their union was Cain. Thus, adherents believe this event resulted in the creation of two races of people, the wicked descendants of the serpent who were destined for damnation, and that God wiped out at, with the flood, and the righteous descendants of Adam who were destined to have an eternal life. Um, so yeah, it's really interesting. There's some really weird Gnostic texts out there. Um, for example, one of them was there was the serpent, and I think it was a bear, and I think the serpent was called, well, one of them was called Elohim, the other one was called Yahweh, just two different names of God, and that's what led to the various lines of Adam and Eve. I read much further into this, and what's interesting is if you look at Genesis, there's a really interesting case for this. For example, after when God finds out about what Eve did and he punishes them, the first thing that he says as payback is that I'm going to give you painful childbirth. And it's like, why is that the first thing? Right? And this is immediate association of childbirth with Eve eating of the forbidden fruit. Not to mention in ancient times, the snake was a symbol of the phallus, which would indicate reproduction. But again, this is if you've seen my earlier stuff, I have a completely different interpretation of what Eden means, in which Eve is completely vindicated and it's all just, a different story. But this is a really interesting idea, and it's an idea that would have circulated through time and complexified the symbols. This is another really interesting thing. Ningishzida, the Lord of the Good Tree. So in the Sumerian tale, you have Inanna as kind of like an Eve like figure, and you have Enki, who's kind of like an Adam slash God like figure. And Ningishzida is Lord of the Good Tree and the deity of serpents, and he also occupied Dilmun. Dilmun is the Sumerian Eden, the Garden of Eden, Dilmun, and he was in the garden, and his name is the Lord of the Good Tree, almost like the tree of good and evil. And the Lord of Serpents is depicted with entwined snakes rising from his shoulders, an early Caduceus motif. In Sumerian myth, he stands at the gates of Dilmun, acting as a guardian of life. Very important, snakes are a massive guardian symbol. All temples around the world, you will see guardian snakes and guardian lions. Guardian serpents form a vast recurring motif in Mesopotamia and the rest of the world. Ningishzida is a horned serpent. Very important that it's a horned serpent because it would indicate it's a viper, which is venomous. In Mesopotamia, horned serpent dragons guarded the sacred thresholds. In Egypt, cobra deities like Wadjet, which is when you look at pharaohs and they have a little snake on their little headdress, that's Wadjet. Protected temples and pharaohs. In Greece, Python guarded Delphi, and so on. And also Medusa, which is obviously the woman with snakes for hair. I have a big revelation for what or who Medusa is with a lot of evidence at the end. So stick around for that. But Medusa, the root of Medu or Medo, means to guard. So Medusa was a guardian. And if you know Medusa's myth, why is she a guardian? She's not a guardian in the story because Medusa was a thing in the real world that was associated with guardianship. And also the snake is associated with guardianship. So two other strange associations with fertility. So this is very interesting. Just associating the snake with the fertility motif is the mating appearance of snakes is a coiled. They entwine with each other like a caduceus. And so I think that this would have been a symbol for divine union, 100%. Like these things don't come out of nowhere, right? I'm completely convinced that that symbol was from two mating snakes, right? I didn't want to show an image of it. It looked really, I didn't like it. And then parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis is what's called the scientific term for virgin birth. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of overlaps with Jesus and serpents and so on later on. And yeah, it's quite interesting. But if the ancients saw this, they would have thought, well, what are these creatures that can reproduce, fertility, reproduce without, sexual contact? Okay, so the other interpretation, wisdom. The serpent was the symbol of wisdom and hidden knowledge in the tree of knowledge, right? It's where he occupied. It was the serpent that taught humanity to awaken the higher truths. So, sorry, this is Blavatsky as well. The serpent's knowledge was the key to spiritual evolution, and through its bite, mankind was open to the divine understanding. Blavatsky here sounds very influenced by Gnosticism. And for Gnosticism, I will explain for people who might be unfamiliar, is the idea that the serpent in the Garden of Eden is a spirit of good and is the spirit of Jesus Christ, or at the very least, the first incarnation of Sophia is the serpent, the second is Jesus Christ. Um, so to the Gnostics, the serpent was sacred, and the Catholic Church did not respond to this very well, and they decided to take them out, and that was the last of them. So, but the idea, and I'll mention as well, Gnosticism, there's evidence that it dates back to the beginning of Christianity, making it just as old an interpretation as traditional Orthodox Christianity. So it's not some weird things that some Christians in the past were thinking. It was a major interpretive lens of Christianity that everything was symbolic and that the serpent was a force for good. Um, so entwined serpents oftenly signifies duality, hidden knowledge, and regeneration. In Near Eastern and Greek traditions, they embody healing and gnosis, carrying the paradox of venom as both the poison and cure. That's that thing I was talking to you about, the poison and cure. So this is quite interesting. A myth tells that, and this is the Asclepian myth, a serpent licked Asclepius's ears clean, granting him hidden knowledge to the Greek. Sorry, hidden knowledge. To the Greeks, snakes were sacred beings of wisdom, resurrection, and healing. The final merging of serpent and staff into one image reflected this, an eternal emblem of medicine, a medicine's paradoxical power to both harm and restore. So I'll get into that later. This is very interesting when we get into the pharmacological side of this. Um, so certain groups were associated with serpents as well, some of which might surprise you. Oh, sorry, I missed something out of this. So, oh, did I talk about it later? No. Something really interesting. This is the biggest thing, right? In Hebrew, the word for serpent, I think I do talk about it here. Hebrew, the word for serpent is nahash or naas or nash, nash, like a long double A nas. The H is silent for serpent, and it carries layered meanings. And the biggest thing, this is really big in mystical circles, is that that word in Hebrew, sorry, often means or can mean enlightenment or shining one or mystery or secrets. And it's really interesting. The word for snake and the word for kind of wisdom is the same. Um, so it can denote a literal snake, but also connotations of divination, enchantment, and wisdom. In Genesis, it appears as a tempter, yet in other contexts, Nahash links to shining or bronze. And, the bronze serpent that Moses held up that you look at and you get healed. Shining bronze are symbolizing of healing, danger, or transformative knowledge. The Nassenes, which is a Gnostic, Christian Gnostic sect, take their name from Nas, serpent. So this shows, how deep the Gnostics were into their serpentry, right? Serpentry. From Nahash. They revered the serpent as a cosmic principle of wisdom, regeneration, and gnosis. Unlike the biblical tempter, the Nassenes saw the serpent as a revealer of mysteries, embodying the life force that links humanity to divine knowledge. And in later Christian lore as well, there's an angel called Raziel. Raziel is the keeper of secrets, and it said he was in the Garden of Eden as well. So, some people might think that the serpent was the angel Raziel, the keeper of secrets. The Ophites. Ophites were another Christian group, and some scholars suggest that a linguistic and symbolic link between the Nassenes, serpent people, um, and the so Nahash, and the Nazarenes. For those in the know, Nazareth is believed to be not a place, but a place that's named after a people. So it's not like a Nazarene is someone from Nazareth, but Nazareth is the place where Nazarenes are. And there's a really big theory about this. I don't know if anyone's heard of Essenes before, but Essenes were a mystical Hebrew sect that interpreted the Bible in a much more mystical context. And this is where it gets very interesting. John the Baptist was an Essene, and the MO of Essenes is that they were very spiritual people who lived in the wild, wore cloaks, were vegetarian, and would wander around and, you know, with disciples and speak truths. And people theorize that Jesus, as he was very close to John the Baptist, who was an Essene, Jesus was an Essene. And this is why his ideas were so controversial, was because he was a rabbi, but he wasn't like a Pharisee rabbi or an Orthodox rabbi. He was a mystical, wanderer, like the Essenes were. But it's just a theory. Like there's no evidence Jesus is an Essene, but if there was evidence, it's likely gone. But so yeah, so it's believed by some that the Nassenes, the serpent worshippers, and the Nazarenes are the same group. Similarity of names led to speculation that early groups blurred the distinction, with both tied to secret wisdom traditions. However, the connection is debated as mainstream Nazarenes were followers of Jesus, not serpent worshippers that we know of. The Ophites, so Ophites are another group. These are really mystical and strange group of people. Again, Ophis is serpent, so it's Greek. So the Nassenes, Nas is the Hebrew word for serpent, and then Ophis is the Greek. Those two languages are obviously very important to Christianity. So they were kind of splinter groups, right? Um, they were a Gnostic sect who revered the serpent as a liberator. They taught that the Edenic serpent gave Adam and Eve gnosis, freeing them from the demiurge's ignorance. Like the Nazarenes, they uh, their very name signals deliberate identification with the serpentine symbolism. Okay, moving on. I just really had to mention that. It's really interesting, but it's not where we're going. So you have three competing symbols: fear, healing, and wisdom. We're yet to get to why, right? Um, and lesser fertility, right? So why are these three commingled? So there is a theory, right? And this is real cutting edge stuff. So it's called the pharmacon hypothesis. I called it the hypothesis. It's not really a hypothesis, but it's kind of a theory about that what ties all of this together um, into a kind of coherent framework. It explains why snakes are a symbol of death, why they're a symbol of healing, and why they're a symbol of wisdom. So the following research is very cutting edge in research on in mystery schools in Greco-Hebrew um, fistulas of the ancient world. It combines translation and philological work in order to shed light on what serpents meant to the ancients, right? So here we see the tight interconnectivity of killing, healing, and divine wisdom. Snake venom used for healing. So in Greek thought, the word pharmakon meant drug, medicine, and poison, and there was no distinction between them. And for reference about how insane that is, um, Greek has one of the largest vocabularies of any language ever. It has believed to have like a lexicon of like 500, I think what I heard in excess of 500,000 words in some estimates. There were so many words, so many definitions, because the Greek language would stack, right? We have philosophy, Sophia, right? So we have all these mishmashes. Like logi means logic, right? So philo, love, of logi, logic, philology. Philo, love, of Sophi, Sophia, wisdom, philosophy. Theo, theos, divine, Sophi, wisdom, theosophy. And so all of these terms just kind of come about in Greek and they stack on top of each other. We get a little bit of that through in English because English obviously is an amalgam of, Greek and Latin and all kinds of stuff. But we have a little bit of that. That's why our language also stacks a bit and we can develop new terms. But Greek was on another level. So the fact that they didn't have a way to distinguish between a drug, medicine, and a poison is very interesting. Very interesting to how they thought about drugs or pharmacon. So no firm boundaries separated them. A single substance might cure one disease and kill another. This duality mirrors the serpent itself, feared as venomous, revered as healing. Both embody the paradox that life and death can spring from the same source. In Asclepian centers, various healing methods were used from herbs to animals, including snakes. The serpent's contradictions mirror the ancient ambiguity of drugs. So we'll get into this in a minute. So in Greek, pharmakon meant drug, medicine, poison at once, substances that could heal or harm, yet medicine becomes clearer if we understood as killing or expelling the what afflicts the body. Healing occurs once the harmful agent is removed. So we have this really weird way of thinking about healing, where we are killing what is killing us, right? We are destroying something. And this destruction of this thing in us that is destroying us is good. And so we have this view of medicine, this thing that we take in our bodies, as a destroying healer, just like the serpent symbolizes destruction and healing, right? Now, why? Why is it like this? We're about to get into it. So we're about to go really deep on a few ancient texts and some stuff that might seem like it not make sense, but this is really incredible stuff. This blew my mind up. It might be really cool to me, not to you guys. I don't know, but this was incredible. So the Scythians were an ancient group of people, and I'll tell you a bit about them. They were incredible warriors. They fought on horseback, and they were the best, maybe the best archers in the world of all time. Maybe they were incredible archers. They could hit, they could hit targets backwards on a horse, right? And the Scythians, very interesting. The Scythians um, had the women fight with them as well, and I didn't include it here, so I'll include it now. The female Scythians is where the idea of Amazonians came from. So the island of women, of great warriors, it came from the Scythians. So they were an incredible people, and I mentioned it later on. We'll mention it now. In Greece, the Greeks bought 300 of them as their police force, like actually their police force. They kept the peace, and they would walk around centers or places where oracles would be, and so on. But what's most important about the Scythians is that they were huge users of snake venom. So this is pseudo Aristotle. Some would just say Aristotle. Mirabilium, I don't read Latin, unfortunately. Marvelous things heard. This is section 845A. I spared you from looking at the Greek and just used a translated version. So this is the translated version. So we're going to read it out. This is a very important text. So they say that the Scythian drug with which they smear their arrows is made from a viper. For it seems the Scythians keep vipers that have already given birth to live young. Vipers give birth to live young and not don't lay eggs. Um, and after taking them, they let them rot for some days. So they get the vipers um, after they've given birth. So they've given what they're useful for. They kill them presumably and bury them and let them rot. Um, when it seems that to them all has putrefied, they pour human blood into the small vessel and mix it. When this too has rotted and become watery, I'm sorry, this is so graphic, right? They smear it on their arrows. Thus, by the ichor of the viper, ichor means essence, they make their poison inevitably deadly. So they use this poison on the ends of their arrows, and you'll see where I'm going with this, why this is so incredible. They use it on the ends of their arrows. This is something done in the ancient times. And why did they let it rot? It's because viper venom is not neurotoxic. It's a different kind of venom that rots you. And so if you get bitten by a viper of certain sorts, different vipers and so on, you'll watch your leg or something, whatever's bit be rot in real time. And obviously, when you mix it with the blood and so on, they knew what they were doing with all of this mixing and stuff. It wasn't random, weird, ancient stuff. They did everything for a reason. And it's believed that when it was septic and very putrid and horrible, that would amplify the poison's effects of some sort. And this poison made by the Scythians is revered throughout the ancient world as being so horrible that if you were just nicked with it, you were done for. Slow, agonizing death. In Herodotus, their name has been supposedly synonymous, a synonym of archers. So the Scythians went cold archers, right? Strabo notes venom so potent its odor was injurious. Um, its odor was injurious. What a way of putting it. It was an injury to smell the odor of it. Um, Modern summaries describe the toxicon, a concoction of decomposed viper, human blood, and dung, coating arrowheads to guarantee fatality. So very interesting. Okay, why are you bringing up this text? What are we going into with regards to this, right? Okay. Oh, there we go. Did it load? There we go. Okay. So a few more. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, there I am. Good to go. All right. The Scythians take the venom of vipers and mix it with human blood. This is another source to verify this is what they do, which they keep in a leather bag. When it becomes putrid, they smear it on their arrows with it. Thus, wounds become uh, the wounds they inflict are incurable. They did another source, Strabo. They dip their arrows in poison, and Pomponius. The Scythians make the arrows more deadly by smearing them with serpent venom mixed with human blood. Okay, so those are the sources. They were a Greek police force. So according to the collector, both the orators Essenes and the Andacenes, and not heard of those two people, mentioned the purchase of 300 Scythians. So this is a text of what they said. We added 100 new triremes to our fleet, and we also equipped 300 cavalrymen and brought 300 Scythians. Okay, this is important. So the Scythians were brought into Greece. These Scythians were strongly believed to form the basis of Athens' Scythian police force. So, oracles. Um, I'm not sure if we know what oracles are, but I'll go into it. So the Python at Delphi, the myth, sorry, so when, what's it called? Apollo fought the Python. This was at Delphi. Python at Delphi, the myth begins with Python, an immense earth serpent, because his mother was Earth, Gaia, that guarded the sacred spring. Apollo slew the creature, but its presence was never erased, its essence renamed in the sanctuary as a force of earth, vapor, and frenzy. Um, from this union of the serpent and sun god arose the most revered oracle of Greece, where the human voices became the mouthpiece of divine will. Those who sought guidance did not receive calm instruction, but words born from the states of frenzy and the manic seizure that was believed to come from the god himself. The serpentine breath overwhelmed the body, breaking down ordinary reason until speech poured from forth in riddles. These frenzied utterances, though disordered in form, were treasured as purest truth. So these women were worshipped. These were sacred, sacred women. And they, through inhaling vapor at Delphi, Delphi was, where the spirit of the python is. And by the way, when we say python, pythons that we know are named after this python. So this python is venomous. The python that fought Apollo is venomous. It's not like a non-venomous big snake. Why this is really interesting is because these oracles, they would induce and smell some fumes, which would give them a manic and frenzied state. And they would spew wisdom from their state. And it is believed by many that they had some psychedelic, um, you know, experience. And, we found psychedelics and THC and stuff like that at old sites. In their incense, it's infused with THC and stuff like that, right? But what's really interesting as well is that the name for the frenzied state that the oracle induces is called oestrus. And this is the root of the word estrus, right? Where the word, estrus with associations with women, right, come came from. And there's a whole reason as to why. But these oracles were absolutely sacred. Alexander the Great once did a really bad thing, and he forced an oracle to give him a prediction or an oracle, right? Anyway, so this was these were really protected people, and they were protected by bodyguards in particular who were Scythians. If not at Delphi, at other areas, other oracles across Greece were protected by Scythians, and I have sources for it. So oracles and snakes were bound together in ancient thought at Delphi. The slain serpent Python left behind a presence that fueled prophetic frenzy, turning poison into vision across cultures, and so on and so on. I've said this. Okay, so this is where it gets super interesting. The ancient Greco-Roman medicine and religion were deeply intertwined. Plant-based drugs and animal toxins were central in ritual and healing. In Dionysian worship, Bacchants were associated with the handling of vipers. In ecstatic rites, where had the ecstatic frenzy. Snakes symbolize both medicine and mystery, bridging the line between healing practices and cultic ecstasy. The same substances that could heal, ointments, drugs, and suppositories, could also induce altered states tied to divine frenzy. And so they viewed the oracle divine wisdom that they got from substances, right, as pharmacon, as healing. And many of this pharmacon existed in the state of venom, which would kill. So you have this weird interplay of poison, medicine, and wisdom, which is incredible. So, and this is a quote from a scholar, and Bacchus, the god of scholar David Hillman, and Bacchus, the god of ecstatic dance, the worship of this mystery cult divinity known variously as Dionysus, Bromius, and Zagreus was connected in classical literature and art with the handling of the European horned viper. This snake accompanied the Maenads and the Bacchants in their religious processions and was frequently associated with oracles of myth who nursed gods and heroes alike. This practice happened way before the most ancient of texts were written. So this has been all through ancient history, right? Uh, dragonesses. Ooh, whoops. So dragonesses, divinities like the Furies, um, sorry, that's just supposed to be Freeze, of whom was Alecto and their sisters, the death spirits, sorry, it's really hard to read, were represented as being infused with viper venom, and the ancient world believed these female entities were particularly hardy and possessed by significant stamina, longevity, and apparent immunity to weakness or illness. Some of them even were called dragonesses. These are involved with the burning off of human mortality. It appears that the priestesses of Hecate, Priapus, Demeter, Persephone were involved in the consumption of viper venom. Aeschylus was nearly executed for revealing the secrets of the Eleusinian mysteries in his plays on Orestes. One of these plays, Cupbearers, contains a dream of a dragoness. So he was saying something in his plays, and they almost killed him for revealing the secrets of what we just explored, that they ingested this viper venom for ritualistic purposes. The Dracaena, or dragon priestesses, was a prominent priestess authority in the performance of ancient mystery initiations, considered to be masters of poisons. Dragon priestesses perform necromantic initiation rituals meant to induce resurrection-like states. So don't be scared of the word necromantic. It's not like actual dead people. They had this thing of, and Asclepius would do this as well, where they would bring the person to a death-like state, a very like they'll poison them, bring them to a death-like state, and then give them antidote to heal them. And this journey was believed to be either a spiritual kind of thing. There's rituals of rebirth that we do today, right? Of I won't say them, but there are rituals of rebirth that we do today. It's the same thing. They'll bring them down to the state of nearly dying and then resurrect them. Um, okay, so the Medusae, this is where it gets fantastic. I think I mistitled the other one. This is still the words of Hillman. For example, the mystery rite priestesses known as the Echidnae or Echidnae, the Greek word for viper, right? And the Echidnae is a goddess with snake legs, ritually employed viper venom. The Echidnae priestesses were almost exclusively depicted in art and literature in association with serpents, pharmaceuticals, and ritual magic. The titles used by Echidnae priestesses derive from their own particular duties within the mystery rite itself. And then get this, the descriptive titles were often to women and girls involved in varying aspects of the rite. For example, the Medusae were female temple guardians, Scythians. Um, Infamously equipped with arrows made lethal when drawn through the guardian's poisoned hair. The serpentine locks of the Dracaena were assistants were and her assistants were pre-treated with concoctions containing numerous poisons. These Medusae were said to be able to paralyze or turn to stone anyone who dared to approach the dragon priestesses or oracle without explicit consent. Medea, the founder of the poison building Medeo-Persian Magi, bore the same priestly linguistic root med in her name, and it was said to be both the first priestess of dragon priesthood as well as the accomplishing drug. So her name Med is the root of medicine, believed to be. And then, as you see here, just the second one, Medusae, the oracular bodyguards were called Medusae, Greek word for judge or protector, right? In fact, temple guardians originally acted as enforcement arms of oracular temples. The infamous oracular guardian known as Medusa came from their ranks. The Greeks claimed she could quickly and efficiently paralyze her victims, and so on. So why does and as well, if you look at the older tales of Medusa, she doesn't have hair snakes. She has snakes in her hair. And the idea is that they will put the snake venom in their hair and then paralyze their victims with it. And that's the source of the Medusa, the protector of the oracle. So in Euripides, that's just the Greek there. They hold their, I was really surprised by this and I had to dig deep to see if this was true because I couldn't find it anywhere. And it's at the bottom of his study. So I cited him here. And at the bottom of his study, he cites this text that we're about to read. So this is in Euripides, which is very old. I think it's 3rd century BC text. They hold their dances outside their house. So this is Dionysus talking about the Maenads. And these were the ritual guardians and women who defended the ritual and stuff. In the green shadows, crowned with wreaths of ivy in their hands, they bear the sacred thyrosis of the body, of the vine, and with them are serpents, dread and holy beasts. There you go again, dread and holy, right? Again, this double meaning here of them being good and bad. Some let the snakes lick their cheeks, which reminded me of the snake licking the ears of Asclepius. Maybe the licking of the ears of Asclepius would indicate some drug rite that they did. Who knows? That's just pure speculation. Some let the snakes lick their cheeks. Others carry them wreathed in their hair. And this is a text which shows you that this idea of the snakes in the hair was not just a myth. It came from an actual practice that they did. Okay, this is another part of Euripides. I'm just going to read it out because we're running low on time. So in this scene, Croessa, which is just some character, tells her servant about 2 drops of Gorgon's blood. So a Gorgon is another word for Medusa, or Medusa is a Gorgon, right? Gorgon's blood given to her ancestor. That's a big name. I'm not going to pronounce that. Just so we're aware as well, we're saying that the true Medusae were very skilled in poisons. So one drop is deadly, drawn from the serpents on Medusa's head, and the other is healing, warding off disease. There you go again. with the healing and the deadliness. So the last slide, this will all explain why. So this is just an English 20, this is a 2025 translation. This is not what it actually says. It's just kind of saying it. So the old servant goes, you still got something hidden, Cruessa, 2 drops of Gorgon's blood. Old servant, what can they do? Cruessa, one heals, one kills. Old servant, how were they kept safe? Cruessa, my ancestor Erechthonius sealed them in gold, a gift from Athena. Old servant, and how they pass to you? Cruessa, yes, I wear them on my wrist. Old servant, how does it work? Cruessa, each drop came from the Gorgon's vein. One restores life and the other is venom from her snakes. Uh, Old servant, together or apart? Cruessa, apart. Good and evil must not mix. Old servant, then you have all you need. Um, anyway, but that's another text. Again, this is an ancient text which shows you about the dual function of snake venom, the healer and the killer. The high oracular priestesses, right? So you have the oracles. The high priestess is called the Pythia. Very interesting. This is the Pythia depicted here with the serpents. Pythia and Python have a root etymology of pythos, means to rot. Why would they name their priestesses after this? It's no coincidence that the rotting snake was used as poison, and the venom, which rots, is used as medicine or psychoactive substances. Apollo killed a python, very funnily, with a bow and arrow, right? Which now that we've read what we've read, that means a lot more than just saying it's just a weapon that you choose to kill. There's very likely a statement there that the killing of the python with the bow and arrow is a symbol of the Ouroboros, right? Because the arrow has the venom and it's hitting the snake, which has the venom, and you have this circle again. The body of the python immediately rot. So that's in the myth. So when Apollo killed the serpent just started to rot under the sun. The sun shone down in it. The sun is Apollo, god of the sun, and the snake began to rot. And that's funny because if the python was hit with venom, he would begin to rot immediately because that's what viper venom does. So what is this idea of rotting? The idea of the snake rotting, as in the myth of Apollo and what is used to make poison. Whoops, a lot of ands there. And the venom which is used to kill being used as a medicine is a backwards concept. So that's what I'm saying. It's a backwards concept and likely fueled the idea of the Ouroboros. The rotting snake venom causes rot. So in order to get the poison, you have to rot the snake. And then once you have that, you cause other things to rot. But becoming this cycle of destroying and being destroyed. It also works as a symbol for medicine, where you are killing your affliction. You are killing what is killing you, like killing a snake with snake venom. Philosophically, as well, as a symbol for wisdom, we sacrifice or rot away our vices on the path of wisdom. One must induce a mental poison on oneself. Call it fear, call it anxiety, insecurity, to make our internal sicknesses known so we can cut them out. I cling more to the philosophical perspective, and this is what I'm drawing attention to. I don't really care. I'm not a big fan of pharmacological ideas and stuff like that, but it has a really interesting idea baked into it, this interplay between that which kills and that which saves. The philosophical perspective, it is what I believe to be the heart of the concept. There is pain in remedy, and there is remedy in pain. A backwards law which says the answer to your salvation is where the most uncomfortable, the most painful and feared place is. Sometimes we, flawed humans, sometimes two we flawed humans, a moment of honesty to someone who you may be in opposition to is as hard as drinking poison. Being virtuous is impeded not by bad things, but by pleasures. And doing the hard things, facing the dragon, facing nihilism, is where the fruits of gods lie. So that's the main idea that I think is incredible. That sits at the nexus of all of this, right? The snake which eats its own tail, that which causes um, destruction, is also one's salvation. Another very interesting thing, and I think that's it for us. Um, there's my conclusion. Another very interesting thing is that snakes actually will create an Ouroboros. They'll eat their own tail. But what's incredible is it's believed that they do so when they're stressed, which is really sad. But they do so when they're stressed, which is an incredible, again, another incredible idea that stress or anxiety is almost like eating your own tail. It's a self-destruction. So the treasure, there is no better symbol, and I believe this is to be no accident, than the dragon with the hoard of gold. You must go into the cave and confront what you fear most in order to unlock the treasures of the world. The thing of most value is always the hardest place to get to. And with that, that concludes the talk. So thank you all for listening to that. And yeah, I'm interested to see if anyone has any questions or any comments or anything like that. So yeah, tell me what you think and fire away.
It's not a question, but I think it's more like a comment. Oh
Yeah,
my God, it's really a lot. It's
yeah,
really
it's a
good.
lot. Thank you.
I suppose,
Yeah, it's sorry.
yeah, I think I think you're right. It's not the whole thing. I think there's a lot more to 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 all these as well. It's so deep.
It is so deep. And it's like I wish I could show a visual of with all the research I've done, like how much I know, where am I? How much I know with like how much I know is out there but I don't know. And then beyond that, all of which I don't even know I don't know. And it's just this is why symbolism is so incredible, right? It's because it says so many different things at the same time, right? So yeah, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I hope it was enlightening in some respect.
Yeah, I do believe that it's pretty enlightening and
Mm.
and just really curious. Like why vital though? Why vital?
Why? What? Like, as in, like, as opposed to other poisonous snakes?
That's right.
Oh, it's depends. I would imagine the pharmacological use would depend on the serpent or what's accessible. I didn't include an image. I don't know why I didn't include an image. One of the serpents that they used literally had horns like a devil. It's so ironic, right? And it's like, well, the question is, how much did our depictions of devils was influenced by that? So maybe we're thinking it's funny in one way, but it's actually funny in the other way. Um, so this is what's really crazy is there's this one scholar that I've read into, and he's one of the top in the field of like philology in the world right now. His name's Carl Ruck, and if I'm misremembering the story, I'm sure of it, but I'll just say what I found interesting from it. He said, um, him and some colleagues translated some works about what they would do for a drug ritual, right? And they had all the ingredients and they tried it. They made it and they tried it and it didn't work. And or I think it didn't work to the level that they expected to. But apparently the thing is, right, is that in the recipe it said you have to mix in bone, like charred bone meal. And that seemed like a irrelevant kind of ritual, woo-woo thing, right? And it turns out that the addition of charred bone meal made the compound basic, which allowed the psychedelic component to survive against I think it was like the acidic environment. And so
Mm,
that's how fine-tuned they had. It was science, like for lack of a better word. They did everything for a reason, right? And so it was an incredible thing to listen to that they were kind of stumbling into science. They didn't know what basic acidic is, but they knew when they mixed it with bone ash, it would work. So yeah, when you ask like one snake over another snake or one viper over another viper, I imagine it's for a reason, or it might just be accessibility.
mm.
Yeah.
Wow, this is so mind blowing.
It is really mind-blowing. What blew my mind
Yeah.
the most was the idea that Medusa was based off of the real people, and it's also the same root as the Amazonians. But
Mm,
Amazonians, like the female warriors, Wonder Woman, all that, that came from the Scythians. Um, and so, yeah, this is weird idea of the snake venom being used as a offensive and then used as this remedy thing. There's so much I didn't include as well that I felt, some things are really confronting, about how they engaged in drug use. But to be clear, I feel like I went on a little bit about the whole drug use a little bit too much. It's not about the drug use. It's about the symbolism that comes about because of it. I'm very much against psychedelic drug use. I think
mm,
especially experimental stuff. None of what they did, those Greek rites, have survived to today, with the exception of like a few things. But they viewed poison and medicine in the same breath. What an incredible way to view it, that the medicine is a poison that kills your afflictions. It's like, whoa, right? Um, which it is, right? You take too much Panadol, you die. So,
that's true.
yeah, and now we're using something that was considered a harsh drug for so many years, THC, as a medicine, prescribed to dogs and stuff now. So,
Mm.
quite an incredible inversion. But
Mm.
yeah, does anyone have
I,
any? Yeah, go on.
yeah, I think it's pretty similar to Chinese medicine as well. Like
Oh,
there are
absolutely.
yeah combinations of herbs that when used at a certain amount or specific amount, it would cure some of the illness or ailments. But you just have a little bit more, it kills the person.
Wow, wow.
And different combinations that, like, if you use individually or separately, it heals. But if you put both together, you actually kill the person. So, so they do like a lot of all this trial and error. And I suppose it is also the same for the Viper's venom. They might have used quite a few different snakes, right? And they realize like the Viper one has the
Oh
most
yeah,
functions.
uh, I feel sorry for all the people in the trial and error process for that one. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
there's this.
Thanks.
This
Yeah.
is one text I just wanted to go back to as well, and I feel like it encapsulated what was being said. When my computer doesn't freeze. Okay, there it is. Okay, it was the Carl Jung quote. Okay, so the snake is ambivalent and it carries the double message of life and death. It symbolizes the process of transformation where destruction and renewal are intertwined. The deadly venom reminds us of the shadow, the danger, fear, and fear, and the shedding of the skin speaks of regeneration and healing. Healing is possible through the confronting and the integrating of the darker, life-threatening aspects of the psyche. I feel like that encapsulates so much of this more the psychological, philosophical aspect of this idea as well. And I hope everyone kind of gets an idea now of what serpents meant in the ancient world, right? Um, like I asked the question at the beginning, and like if I ask you again, uh, where is it? If I ask you again that this symbol, the rod of Asclepius, when you see it now, what does it mean? Because like again, at the beginning, you had an idea. At halfway in, at the end, you have an idea, and then your symbolism just keeps on doing that, and that, and that, and that. And it's quite incredible. Sorry, my computer's glitching. I'm looking for the rod of Asclepius because if I look at the rod of Asclepius now, I'm seeing here it is. I don't know if my screen's blocking it. Okay, there it is. Okay, do you see the rod on the screen, or is it being blocked? Okay, cool. Yeah, you have the rod of Asclepius there, and it's like I see that and I'm seeing something else now. I'm seeing the symbol of healing, right? In Asclepian centers with Asclepius, they would use snake venom. in order to treat people. Um, and so now I understand why it's a symbol of healing. It's a symbol of killing an aspect of yourself, right? And also that's why in the Bible passage, why did God punish his people by sending fiery snakes upon them? Because they doubted, right? They were something. The doubters are the ones that need to be killed off. And the ones that look at the symbol, at what they're scared of, ones that look at what they're scared of and confront it are the ones who are saved, is an idea. I don't know. But it's a way of interpreting it, right? I feel like the interpretations get so much more fun when you understand symbolism a bit better. But yeah. Um, does anyone else have anything to say or all good if not? Did anyone put anything in the chat? I'm really bad at using Zoom. Oh, no, all good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Would love some feedback as well. If you found it good, if you found it not good, if you found it kept yapping on about the same thing or anything like that, let me know. But yeah, this is all going to be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. And yeah, thanks a lot for coming. And if you know anyone else who would like to join next time, let me know. And also, we'll let you know what the next one will be soon as well. All right. Okay. Thanks for coming, everyone. And if anyone wants to ask me any other question afterwards, just hang back and then yeah.
Nothing. Just want to say thank you, Malik, and keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Okay. I'll see you guys later then.
Yeah, thank you.
No
See
worries.
ya.
Bye.